Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
This show is happily sponsored by MetaGeek. Wi-Fi is awesome when it works, but when it doesn't, the problem is usually a mystery. Unless you have Insider Office by MetaGeek. Insider Office quickly scans your wireless environment and recommends ideal channel selection to help you make your Wi-Fi awesome, and keep it that way. Check out the solutions at metageek.com to get started, and get your Wi-Fi working the way you want it to. Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. I am Roel Dionisio and I'm joined with my co-host Francois. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. It's early morning for me, mid-morning for you, and we wanted to get a recording out there for you guys, and we are on episode 90, so that's kind of a big episode for us.
Yeah.
We're chugging along with these episodes, and I think there's a lot more content that we plan on doing, and it's just a matter of time and scheduling so we can get this all in. But yeah, I'm glad to reach number 90 and getting closer to 100. That's a big deal.
Yeah, exciting. Big milestone.
Yeah, so in this episode, we want to talk about containment. And so the name of this episode is Don't Contain Me, Bro. And so if you guys know that the meme for that was when... the name, I just took it from a situation that happened a long time ago where someone was like, "Don't tase me, bro," and then he got tased. So I kind of see it as the same way with containment, where somebody's trying to contain your SSID. So I'm going to go through my experiences and trying to find out who is containing your network, what tools that I use, and what it looks like on a Cisco controller. But before we go into that topic, there is one bit of news that we want to share with you guys, and that's for Wi-Fi Trek. If you plan on going and attending that conference, you can get 25% off. We do have a coupon code for Wi-Fi Trek, and that is CTS 17, and that should get you 25% off for Wi-Fi Trek. And that's going to be in Orlando, Florida, Francois? I think that's where it's at. And you just came from Florida, right?
October.
You just came from Florida. You did a training. How was the weather out there?
Was hot and humid, but it was nice. It didn't rain. So usually it rains in the summer, from what I've heard. So it was pretty good. No, weather was good.
That's good. Yeah, it's actually very hot here in the Bay Area. And if you look at it, San Francisco, over the San Francisco that you guys think of, the city, the tall buildings, it got up to 106 degrees out there. And usually it doesn't really get above 80 or 90. So I think that was a record. And yesterday it was about 100 degrees out here. I was in an area where it was 114. It's crazy weather across the country here.
Well, the conference, it's in October between the 11th and 13th. They also have a couple of 3 days for training before the conference, so October 8th to October 10th.
Yeah, and I think
so you can go on the website, cwnp.com. You'll have all the details for the conference.
Yeah, the coupon code only works for the conference, and I don't think it works for the trainings. But yeah, go ahead and check out the conference page, and it looks like there's a lot of great presentations that's gonna happen there. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go because I have commitments to the family and my son's school. But I wish I could attend and see what these presentations are going to be like. But I look forward to hearing more about them as the conference happens and occurs. But there's presentations from people, all sorts of presentations, actually. Something they'll teach you about data rates. That's from Glenn Kate. He's been on the show. They've got Jason Hintersteiner is going to talk about divergent philosophies of on the future of Wi-Fi. He's also been on the show before. Jerry Alla is going to talk about the Wi-Fi Engineers Toolkit reinvented. He's also been on the show. We've had many of these guys on the show before.
Yeah. And Kimberly is going to talk about Aruba wireless product and solutions. And she hasn't been on the show. Maybe she should come on the show.
Yeah, we should talk about some Aruba wireless. She hasn't been on yet. And then there's a lot of other good things. This one I think will be good, which is Chromecast, Apple TV, Discovery, and casting on a WLAN.
Yeah.
People always seem to have issues with that.
I had issues with my Apple TV at home on my Cisco network a few years back. I remember.
That would be a good session for you then, because you'll learn about Bonjour and MDNS snooping, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Protocols that weren't meant to be on enterprise.
Yeah.
So there's other cool sessions, some that aren't really technical, like RFP management. So if you work at an environment where you have to deal with RFPs, that would be a good one. But yeah, lots of good presentations, I think, that are going to come out of this CWMP Wi-Fi Trek on October 8th through the 10th. All right, well, let's get into the session of containment. And Francois, have you dealt with containment before? Have you used it, or have you came across it on your networks?
We'll talk about it, but the only time I've used containment was for training purposes. So I would teach rogue APs to student and what we could do when we detect rogue APs. And one of the solutions is to contain them, right? And we would just set up a SSID, contain it, and then watch the packet captures. And then I would have the student connect to the SSID, and then they would automatically get disconnected. So, they usually like it because they can see the behavior of it, and then we can analyze the packet captures. But I don't advise my customer to do containment. I usually advise them to classify the rogues and then monitor or send logs to someone that monitors it, so they can act whenever there's a rogue AP detected, but a valid rogue AP, right?
Right.
So we do like classification rules that filter out the false positives, basically.
Yeah, because in containment, and this relates to the security of your wireless network, containment is trying to contain a rogue. So you have a rogue AP on your network, you don't know what it is, and you want to try to suppress that AP and prevent clients from joining that rogue AP if it's, say, broadcasting your SSID, but it's not an AP that's under your control. It could be somebody not doing anything malicious at all. It could be just an employee bringing in an access point, and maybe there's some sort of issue with wireless, and they're just thinking, hey, I'll just bring in an access point I have from home. I'll use the same SSID as work, and then all of a sudden you've got a rogue AP on your network, and that's circumventing maybe your security. Maybe you're using 802.1x, and for some reason this guy is now just broadcasting an open SSID that goes straight onto your network, and people now have open access to your network resources. So that's a bad thing, and that would be classified as a rogue. And in any wireless system, it's going to figure out what are the rogues that are around your wireless network on your APs, and then it'll classify them, put them on a page that's usually for security. And on the Cisco wireless LAN controller, if you just go to monitor and then expand on rogues, you'll see a different list of rogues, and you can classify them as friendly, malicious, or custom. And then from there, like Francois said, we don't recommend actually containing them because there are some legal ramifications if you do that. And we'll go in through how I was able to find a rogue and how we can try to mitigate that without breaking the law.
Yeah, so the idea of this episode is because, Royal, you had an issue and you were seeing a lot of unusual traffic in the air, right?
Yeah, it was a situation where somebody or many people kept saying they kept getting dropped off the wireless network. And so as I tried to figure out what that meant, it sounded like, hey, I'm using my laptop, and then all of a sudden I get disconnected, but they never reconnect back to their SSID. And so I thought that was kind of odd. If there's no interference, like RF interference, what could it be, right? So I simply just opened my laptop and using AirTool, my favorite application, I set it to the channel that they were using, and then I was just capturing frames on that channel. And so imagine it's a multi-tenant building. There's a lot of people in that building, a lot of networks. How do you even get to that point? It's de-authentication, right? Because when you're doing containment, the wireless system that's doing containment on the BSSID is going to send de-authentication frames to clients that it sees on that are connecting to that BSSID. And so
basically how containment works, like from a technical point of view.
Yeah. And we'll show some screenshots of what that looks like. I might, I'll show some screenshots because it's interesting to see how it works. And then if you play with this at home in your lab, you'll see the actions that happen, right? And I was testing it here in my lab. I would connect my phone to an SSID and then tell my controller, hey, contain that rogue, it's malicious. And then my phone would just disconnect. And so when I'm looking at frames, sometimes it's hard to see those frames because there's so many frames in your capture. And you could use a tool to try to show you where there might be issues. And so one of those tools that I actually used was Mojo Packets. And when I uploaded the capture to Mojo Packets, it gave me a pie chart of what kind of frames it captured, like a percentage of how many is management, a percentage of how much is beacons. And there is a large chunk that said this percentage is your de-authentication frames. And I was like, well, that's kind of odd. And so right away, what I did with that capture, using your tool, your sheet, Francois, that cheat sheet, Wireshark cheat sheet, I was able to formulate a filter. And what I did is I said, okay, show me all the de-authentication frames. And I was able to see that. So I can see what BSSID those authentication frames are being sourced from and where it's going to. And so a lot of times what you'll see, or what I saw, was the source. It was usually the same. There's, in a multi-tenant environment, you'll actually see a lot of the authentication frames. And I think that's either because people don't understand what containment actually does, or there's legitimate reasons for them to do containment. But what you'll see is it's usually sourced by the BSSID, and then a destination is to a client MAC address. But sometimes you'll see a broadcast, and that's also bad. And so people will just disconnect.
That's crazy. So they disconnect everyone.
Yep. And I saw it firsthand. I could see it. And what I did, so the question is now, okay, I have all these frames. What do I do with those? How do you find this source, right? And I would say the easiest way, by far. And the tools I had with me, I had my MacBook Pro, I had AirTool, I have an AirCheck G2, right? So, okay, how do I find the source? Where are they? The easiest way to do it is take that BSSID and then open up Wi-Fi Explorer and just punch in the BSSID into the search field, and maybe you might just see the SSID that's also broadcasting from that BSSID, and you could usually get the company name from that SSID, and then go have a conversation with them and try to work together and say, okay, I know you're trying to contain. Is there something we can do together to hey, maybe I'll be on these channels and you be on those channels, and that way you won't have co-channel interference. That way everyone's performance is a little bit better. That's where it gets a little bit touchy, because it's how you approach the conversation to whoever's doing the containment.
So you become the Wi-Fi engineer becomes the investigator, and then after that becomes the politician.
Yeah, well, I handed it off. I said, here, you guys can talk to your neighbor. But there's a filter. I'll also, so we'll link out to your document, Francois, that has the filters, but there is a specific filter you could use to just see the de-authentication frames. And then what you could do, if you don't have Wi-Fi Explorer, you could do another filter, a different filter that shows the source BSSID, and then also add another filter that says that you're looking for beacon frames, and you might be able to see the SSID from there as well.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean.
Yeah, so that's kind of the I don't want to say like poor man's way of doing it. That's just trying to find rogues or anyone doing containment using the tools that you have, right? So AirTool, that's a free application from Adrian Granado's, an awesome application. And then using filters to try to figure out where the source is coming from. Now, you might be able to see maybe the neighbor, right? But in a multi-tenant environment, maybe it's not that easy to figure out where that neighbor is. What you could do is within the frame, start seeing the RSSI value. And so as you keep capturing frames, if you get closer towards the source, the stronger the signal. That's I think a poor man's way of trying to figure out where the source of that containment is. So that's one way, another way to do it.
Hey everyone, let's take a break to think about Wi-Fi for a moment. It's awesome when it works, right? But when it doesn't, the problem is usually a mystery. If you're sick of simply rebooting your devices and crossing your fingers every time your Wi-Fi goes down, let the Wi-Fi experts at MetaGeek make the invisible visible. Their powerful diagnostic solutions visualize interference from external Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi sources and will help you configure your wireless network for maximum coverage and throughput. From a weekend enthusiast to an enterprise IT professional, MetaGeek has everything you need to make Wi-Fi awesome and keep it that way. Check out their solutions at metageek.com to take your first step towards awesome Wi-Fi, because I use Channelizer to actually visualize the spectrum whenever I'm troubleshooting an issue that seems to be coming from maybe a non-Wi-Fi source, for example. And I've also used the Insider Office as a network scanner to figure out what wireless networks are in the area, what channels they're using, and which channels I should use. And just a little tip, you could also plug in your Wi-Fi DBX and use that with Insider Office to get some Channelizer Lite, for example. You can see some spectrum analysis with Insider Office. Well, anyhow, if you guys are interested, take a look at metageek.com to see what you can do for your Wi-Fi network.
Well, if the SSID doesn't state the name of the business too, like it's going to be hard to find.
Right. And there were some, and this is assuming that whoever is doing containment is not masking their BSSID, right? So if someone's sneaky, they'll hide the real BSSID and just put a spoofed MAC address.
Yeah.
And those were the difficult ones. And I was able to find a couple that were spoofing their MAC address, but they weren't as strong enough of a signal to really bounce anyone off of their network. But whoever is close to that one, they would be. But in the environment I was, it wasn't that strong of a signal. The ones that were masking their MAC address.
So. Now, what about the FCC and the different rules that we need to follow? Yeah. You could have done, you could have reported them, no?
Yeah, and I would resort to reporting them as a last resort if they don't want to cooperate.
I don't like to report people either. But.
Yeah, because there is so if you have in our examples, I'm using a Cisco wireless LAN controller because that's what I have in my lab, and it's very easy to contain another BSSID, right? You go into your list of rogues, you select the one you want to contain, and it's a simple button that just says contain. But there is a message there that pops up, and it says there may be legal issues following this containment. Are you sure you want to continue? And most people probably look at that and they go, I'm not aware of any legal issues. I'll just do it. And then hit OK. And your wireless network now, your APs will, if they see that BSSID, they will contain it and send the authentication frames. And so what are these legal ramifications? Francois, we've seen this with large companies that have been hit by the FCC on this because it is not a good thing to do. It's not legal.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about what happened?
So a couple of years, I think it was in 2014, Marriott, the hotel a brand, they used to contain people's personal hotspots. So they would have basically customers connected their own Wi-Fi instead.
Yeah, and it was a way to make their Wi-Fi network more reliable for paying customers of the Wi-Fi network. And I'm assuming that's what they were going for.
Yeah, I'm guessing they wanted people to pay for Wi-Fi. I think they had like two different versions of Wi-Fi. Maybe, like a free Wi-Fi and then an upgrade,
right?
An upgraded Wi-Fi where you would have to pay a fee or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably like a business decision behind that. But they got in trouble with the FCC for containing all of these personal hotspots. People were mad and reported them, and they got a fine of $600,000 for that.
Yeah, it's not a cheap.
They settled for $600,000.
Yeah, I think it could have been worse, but they did settle for $600,000. But that's not money that a lot of these small businesses have, right? If you just running a small controller and you're trying to make your network run a little bit smoother, and you hit contain on there, that's a big fine for small business.
Yeah, that's why it's better to be aware of what's going on and what you can do. We can add a link to the show notes that links back to the FCC rules, so you guys can have a look at them and see what you're allowed to do. Yeah,
the thing is with those rules, it's up for interpretation.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that's a challenge with that. But we clearly advise you to not actually contain a network and just try to work with either work around those networks or work with your neighbor to try to figure out how you can best improve both of your wireless networks. And I know it's a challenge in some environments that are multi-tenant buildings, but there are valid reasons to get a rogue on your network. And I think that's only when you have someone that's broadcasting the same SSID as you, and it's on your network. You could use something on the Cisco controller that's called what is it called? Rogue Location Discovery Protocol, and it'll send that through the network and try to contain that way. But still, you need to figure out which port it's on and then have it shut down that port. So there's valid reasons for rogues, and not just rogues that are surrounded by you, but rogues that have any kind of malicious intent that's using your same SSID.
Usually what I like doing is I define specific rules to classify the APs. And an example would be, okay, if I detect an AP that's not mine, that's broadcasting my SSID on an open security network, that's a red flag there. Mm-hmm. And then I can flag it as malicious, mm-hmm. and then send alert or something to the admin. Something like
like a report or something.
Yeah, report, or it can be a SNMP packet. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a management system that sends like an SMS and email to the admin, he can know in real time. It's not really real time, but pretty fast what's going on, and he can act on it.
Yeah, if you have Cisco Prime, you could set up this kind of report with your Cisco controllers where you set it up to schedule. It's a scheduled report, and it'll list out all the rogue APs that it's seen, and you can keep that to a specific list of APs or a specific list of controllers. But yeah, that can be scheduled out and sent to if you have a security team, they can see that, and maybe they'll be the ones to try to locate those rogues.
When you classify the APs too, they have you have multiple options you can use, or multiple features you can use. You can use a single strand, so you can say, okay, if I'm receiving the signal with the signal strands higher than -70, let's say, mm-hmm. I can do something. So you can also filter out which APs are in the building and which APs are outside the building, right? So you don't send
people across the street.
Classify malicious APs for your neighbor coming from your neighbors or the coffee shop down the road or something.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the tools that I had mentioned I had with me was an AirCheck G2. So what did I use that for in finding this rogue? One of the neat features of the AirCheck G2 is if you have the directional antenna,
what you could do is search, you can filter out a specific BSSID. And when you find this rogue BSSID, you can actually hit the locate button, and there's going to be like this speedometer that tells you if the signal's weak or strong, depending on where you point the directional antenna. Okay. You can use the omnidirectional antenna too, but I recommend using the directional antenna so it's faster to find. And the feature I like is if you try to find this rogue and you want someone to turn it off, is you enable the sound on the AirCheck G2 and it starts beeping when it gets closer to the AP. And so that's one way to like scare people. And you just get closer and closer. And
are you looking for ghosts?
I get that all the time with the AirCheck G2. Are you looking for ghosts?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm looking for your mom.
Let me know when you find them.
I hate those comments, but yeah, it is what it is.
We need to come up with answers.
Yeah, very good answers. Maybe some that are friendly in the work office, because I know if I said an answer, I think I'd get in trouble. Because I hear it so much, I get annoyed with it. But it is what it is. Well, that's what I have for containment. I didn't want to go into too much of the technical details within the controller. I think that would be good for another episode. This is more about something that I experienced out in a multi-tenant environment, and what tools could you use to try to find this rogue. And those tools that I use, again, were AirTool by Adrian Granados. I use Wi-Fi Explorer, and so once I found that BSSID using AirTool in Wireshark, I plugged that into Wi-Fi Explorer just to see what SSID name comes up, and also use the AirCheck G2 to physically locate that BSSID using the directional antenna and the locate feature of the AirCheck G2.
And if you just want to study containment, you could configure it like in a lab or something, and then do some packet captures, try to connect with the device, see that the device gets disconnected automatically, and then you could use this packet capture, open them in Wireshark, or Wireshark is a free tool, or you can upload them on the Mojo Packet website, which is free as well. And you will be able to analyze the authentication frames and drill down to see exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and when you set it up in your lab, make sure you're not containing your SSID that you're actually using, so you can connect into the network. So the way I set it up is I created a new SSID. I have another access point from another vendor. I created an SSID on there, and had my phone associate to that SSID, and then from the Cisco controller, I looked for that SSID, the BSSID, and I was doing it on the 5 gigahertz because I didn't want anyone on 2.4 to get affected. So I was using a DFS channel, or not I was using a channel that nobody was using in my environment. And then
if you do it at home, don't do it on the home Wi-Fi.
Yeah, don't do it on the Wi-Fi you're using. And so that I contained my SSID I set up on the other vendor's AP connected with my phone. I did a couple tests. I was already connected, and then I sent containment, and then my phone disconnected. And then another test where containment was already happening, and I tried to associate, and it just wouldn't associate at all. It would try, and then it would just say, I can't. And what I wanted to do was test out this vendor's reporting features and see how good their security was, but it was not able to tell me that there was a deauthentication attack or containment. It said everything was fine. I won't say who that vendor is, but that probably needs to be worked on.
Fine, but you don't have any clients connecting.
Exactly. It was not even, my phone wasn't even able to really associate to maybe trigger some sort of alert, because I think the authentication frames were just so prevalent that it was not able to connect at all.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how I set it up. And then you could use command line too as well. There's a CLI in the controller. It's debug.11 rogue enable. And that way you can see all those commands. And if you do config rogue AP classify, and then pick whatever the classification is for the AP, mine was just unclassified. And then you say, I want to change the state to contain. You put the MAC address, and then have a 1 at the end to enable it.
and it will give you a warning in command line 2. It says there may be legal consequences, and then you hit yes, and you'll see a bunch of log messages and how the controller goes through to contain that BSS ID. So it'll say things like, oh, I detected the rogue, here's the BSS ID. And then it says, when you start it, it'll say received containment start for that rogue BSS ID. And then it will move into the next state of, all right, I see that BSS ID, I'm going to contain it, change it to state of contained. And it changes the alert as well. So yeah, you can, like Francois said, you can, if you have a syslog, you can log and classify all this to your remote logging system.
And talking about legal consequences, this is specific to your regulatory domain. So in the US, it would be the FCC. But if you live somewhere else, you have to make sure that you comply with whatever the rules are in your country, on your region.
Yep. Yeah. So if anything, don't actually use contain unless there is a rogue on your local network. Try to work with your neighbors to figure out what's going on and go from there. And work together to make wireless better for both environments.
Yeah, maybe you can fix their 40 megahertz wide channels on 2.4 at the same time, you know?
Put them all on 2.4.
You guys use 2.4, we're going to use 5. Right? Yep.
We're not using 2.4, you guys can have it. That's assuming they don't know anything about wireless. But, I figured if you're using containment on your network, you don't fully understand how it works. So,
yeah.
Well, that's all I have for this week. Anything you want to add before we end the show, Francois?
No, it was pretty good. We're gonna add all the details in the show notes. So if you guys want to practice with it at home at your own risk, you can. Yeah, it's just like it's more like to learn how it works and the different packets. Once you see, in networking, once you see the packets, it sticks in mind, and that you understand the behaviors, and you can better deal with it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if anything, try it out. Save the frame capture so you know what it always looks like. So if you run into this scenario, you know what to do. Cool. Anything you're working on this week, Francois?
I'm going to be working from home mainly on a couple of stuff. But it's not a busy week, so I'm kind of happy because I've been busy lately. So I'm going to have a little time to get some stuff organized.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I got some wireless equipment that I want to test out and see how they interact. Different vendors, so trying to understand how this vendor works and compare them to another vendor and see what solution is best for, whoever has a wireless network that wants to upgrade or move to a different solution. So that way you can tell them what their options are.
It sounds very specific.
There's some specifics.
Maybe you can talk more about it next time.
Yeah.
Are you going to blog about it or?
I'll probably blog about it.
Okay.
It's a solution that's a little more affordable, and I wanted to compare it to the big guys.
Also, something we forgot in the news: Ekahau is coming out with a new product next week. They have a webinar on Thursday.
Oh, that's right. So that would be just in case somebody's listening to this much later.
Yeah,
that is this 7th?
September 7th.
Yeah, I believe so. I think we know what it is. We've probably seen it, but it was very Apple-esque. Like they showed some of the product within their email. But yeah, looking forward to see what this actually looks like in the release, and hopefully they'll let us know when we can get our hands on it.
Yeah.
So we'll probably talk about it on the next episode once we know more information.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. You can find us on Twitter, email, any other social media network. And if you guys have any recommendations for topics or topics you want to hear about, you can head over to the website, cleartosend.net. And at the top there in the menu, there is an Ask a Question, and we'll try to add that into our our feed so we can talk about it. And don't forget to subscribe in iTunes and let us know what you guys think. Leave a review if you can, and we very appreciate all the feedback we get, and we'll keep pushing out more episodes. So I want to thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you guys. See you next week.